Welcome to Melrose Unitarian Universalist Church. Our service today is called Surprised by Joy. So, good morning. Good morning. I am the Reverend Dr. Suzanne Intriligator, and it is a joy to see all of your lovely faces here this morning. There used to be a well-known psalm. Well, it is a well-known psalm, but it used to be more well-known. Psalm 30 that goes like this. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. Well, it's morning, and I hope to bring us a service today that's just full of joy, so full of joy that you might go out from here today refreshed and renewed and spread joy into the world that so desperately needs it. Our church is a vibrant, caring community dedicated to love and service. All who share our values are welcome here among us. If you're joining us for the first time, there's a greeter here to answer any questions you may have. That is Wendy. Wendy, want to give us a wave? There you go. Feel free to talk to Wendy. I have just a few announcements before we get started. Thanks to Gretchen, who is our usher today, and to Jennifer and Harry, who are hosting coffee hour. Thank you. You may notice that some of our children and families are missing this morning. That's because our church in Malden is now offering OWL for 4th to 6th graders, and this morning is the orientation. So they are doing church elsewhere today and connecting us with our neighbors. Two more quick reminders from me. I'm in the process of setting up the worship calendar for the year, and I'd like to hear from you, please. If you want to send me your suggestions about topics or guest preachers or giving partners, I'd be glad to get them. Karen Gabler is the chair of our worship committee, so if you have feedback about worship, please feel free to speak with her or with me. Another reminder that I have drop-in office hours every Wednesday from 4 to 7 p.m., and appointments are available at other times if that doesn't work for you. So please drop in. I would love to hear from you or let me know what time works for you. And now we have a quick announcement from our new Director of Lifelong Religious Education, Rhea Brown-Bright.
Good morning. All right, so quickly, we are looking for more volunteers to volunteer for RE on Sunday morning. Helping with RE is a great way to deepen your spiritual formation and consider your faith in a fun and explorative way. Please let me know if you have any interest after service, or feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to talk to you about the joys of working with kids. Thanks.
Thank you, Rhea. And we have one other quick announcement about a big event that is coming up later in the month. And I want to call forward Jennifer Fanning to make an announcement on behalf of the climate team.
I have an announcement about the Climate Justice Revival taking place later this month. As climate change rocks our world, there is a spirit at work in the congregations and movements committed to justice. As we make the connections between climate and justice, we are called to reimagine what it means to do this urgent work in community. How can our climate work be less anxious and more nourishing, less isolated and more connected, and less limited and more visionary? In our Climate Justice Revival, we and over 300 other UU congregations will have conversations to envision what we hope 2050 will look like in our community, frame the challenges climate change will place on our community and all of its members, brainstorm collective actions to handle risks to the community, and identify our individual abilities and joys that each of us can contribute to collective climate action. It's called the Climate Justice Revival because it invites us to recommit to UU values with a focus on climate change and its effects on all members of the community. It will take place the last weekend of September 28th and 29th, with a Saturday morning spent on these conversations, a Sunday worship service to deepen our commitment, and a Sunday afternoon advocacy hour when we will begin to take action together to bring about a world in which everyone can thrive. We hope you will attend and contribute to this conversation. And we'll have a sign-up table today after service in Parish Hall during coffee hour. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Climate Team. Now on to today's service. We continue our efforts to bring you an order of service without wasting trees or wasting paper or killing trees. So we're updating it from last week. If you want to, you can bring out your phone right now, and that's a QR code. It should, if you point your camera at it, a link should pop up. If you're not so handy with that, it's also on our website and in today's worship reminder, which should be at the top of your inbox in your email. And I think it's permanently going to have text on the, so if you go to our homepage, the top is the worship box. If you click the More button there, you come to a second page, and it's down at the bottom of the second page. So that's where we'll always have the order of service from now on, I hope. That's my goal, at least. And I've also added the QR code to slides later in the service if you get lost and you need a little help later on. So at the same time, you could just relax and let me guide you through the service and watch the slides. Now, it's time finally to have a good look at our beloved community. Turn around, wave hi, say good morning. Say good morning to the people at home. Hi, people on Zoom. Feel free to shake hands or hug, however you want to say. It's a joy to see you this morning. Now, I don't know about you, but I have been getting a lot of joy myself from peaches in the last month or so. They have been delicious this year. So, to kick off our September theme of the power of joy, I have an evocative poem for our call to worship this morning. It's called From Blossoms by the contemporary Chinese-American poet Li Young-Li. From blossoms comes this brown paper bag of peaches we bought from the boy at the bend in the road where we turned toward signs painted peaches. From laden boughs, from hands, from sweet fellowship in the bins comes nectar at the roadside, succulent peaches we devour, dusty skin and all, comes the familiar dust of summer, dust we eat. Oh, to take what we love inside, to carry within us an orchard, to eat not only the skin, but the shade, not only the sugar, but the days, to hold the fruit in our hands, to adore it, then bite into the round jubilance of peach. There are days we live as if death were nowhere in the background, from joy to joy to joy, from wing to wing, from blossom to impossible blossom, to sweet, impossible blossom. Now we light the symbol of our faith, the flaming chalice. I call forward to light it for us this morning the president of the board of directors, or governors of our church. It's Liz Folzer. Thank you, Liz.
We're going to say together our congregation's new mission, which we adopted last year at our annual meeting. So I invite you to rise in body and spirit, and join me in these words, which are on the screen. At MUUC, we nurture and challenge ourselves to deeper understanding, meaning, and purpose. We gather through worship, music, lifelong learning, and caring ministries to build a vibrant, compassionate, and growing MUUC community. We inspire spiritual growth to heal hearts and to support each other. We give generously of our time, talents, and resources at MUUC and beyond, energized by our contributions and grateful for those of others. We transform lives and communities beyond our walls through our own efforts and in partnership with others in the service of social and environmental justice.
Thank you. Please remain standing and join in our opening hymn, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. It's number 361 in the gray hymnal. Thank you. You may be seated. All right, it's time for you.
Friends, this is the time if you'd like to come forward, to be a little closer, or to participate in our time for all ages, that you can come a little closer. I'm going to need some help this morning, so any help is appreciated. I'll give it a few beats.
All right, I'm coming.
All right. Can anyone tell me what the difference between happiness and joy is? Anyone? It's a hard one, isn't it? They're very similar words in our head. So we want to think about this a little bit with some water. So this cup is going to represent the person, right? So this is us, a person. And happiness can be when it's all the way filled. Because you just had a really, really good day. You maybe saw a cute puppy, you saw some friends. It was just a wonderful, magical day. But here's the thing, happiness is just your own. It's not shared with anyone. So we're going to put this back in here really quick. Now, the bowl we have here, we're going to say this is the world, the community we are a part of. This is all of us connected, right? And this is how we're connected to one another, what we share with each other. So what changes happiness to joy is happiness, your cup is still full. But something happens. Can some people come help me add to it really quick? I have little droppers. And the droppers have different colors in them and different things. And we're just want to add in and see what happens. Oh, into this one. Oh, it's into the cup. Yeah. Into the cup. Yeah. Sorry, I should be clear. See, it keeps filling, and it's getting like pretty full. Do we think it's going to spill soon? Yeah. It's want to spill soon. All right, so it's like almost on the edge, but then what happens if we all grab this pitcher together and pour it together? Can you all help me? It has completely overrun. Happiness is when it's on ourselves. Joy is when we share it with one another and connect to one another. This is joy, that sharing aspect, right? And so now that we've poured it all together, we can see our joys mixed out. Sometimes we don't feel happy, right? Sometimes we're sad. But other people are still holding our joys for us. That's why it's so wonderful when we share our joys together. And that's what this is. The cup might be the person, but we're always part of the world. So with that, we want to head downstairs and do some RE activities focused on joy.
Every Sunday at the center of our service, we make time to create together a space for quiet meditation, a time for each of us to connect with our own highest selves, our highest ideals, our own individual sense of the divine, however it is that we each understand it. Let's begin that time together by closing our eyes and sinking down into our seats, feeling our feet on the floor, feeling our bodies at rest. Today, because we are gathered together, we are going to do our meditation time the usual way. First, we'll start with our centering song, and then we'll sit together for a time of shared quiet. Then I will lead us in joys and sorrows and wrap up with a meditation. Our worship theme for September is the power of joy, and our centering song for the month is all about that. It's number 100 in the gray hymnal, I've Got Peace Like a River. Please remain seated and join in the song as you like, letting it gently guide you into our time of shared quiet. Those are some lovely joys shared this morning. I'm just checking the Zoom room. I don't see any joys shared there. But I'm sharing a joy. You may have noticed we've had some moving around of the mics this morning. That's because my headphone mic is now broken, but this is a joy I'm sharing that, usually the hard work of our staff, like Bill and Tom, sometimes it feels invisible because things go so smoothly you don't notice. So I'm just sharing a joy for, the 99% of times when things go really well. So, Gretchen, if you would please, light a candle of joy and all the joys that were shared this morning and those that remain in our hearts. Let the candle be a reminder to all of us to share our joys, to let them overflow, and for us to feel grateful for all the many, many blessings in our lives. For our prayer this morning, I have a practice from a book that has become dear to me. It's called The Book of Joy, published in 2016. It's a record of conversations between two old friends, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Tutu of South Africa. In it, the two spiritual leaders recommend several different practices that I will be sharing with you throughout this year. This one is called humility, a Lojong practice. It's from Tibetan Buddhism. The two write, humility helps us to remember our common bonds with others. Humility helps us to avoid isolation, judgment, and indifference. It helps us remember that we are all equally beloved children of God, as the Archbishop would say, and to remember that we are just one of 7 billion people on the planet. It helps us remember that we are all in it together. So now the practice. I invite you to relax, close your eyes if you like, and reflect. In your mind's eye, think of all the people who are responsible for your life. Think of your parents who gave you life, your teachers who taught you, the people who grow your food and make your clothes, the countless others who are responsible for your having the life that you have each and every day. Now think of all those who discovered and created all of the things we take for granted, the housing, the crops, the medicines that keep us alive. Think of all the ancestors who had to live and survive so that you could be born, who braved enormous hardship so that you could have the life that you do. Now think of the family and friends who give your life meaning and purpose today. Allow your heart to open and experience love and appreciation for all of these people. Experience the enormous joy and appreciation that comes from being in touch with all that has been given to you, in realizing how dependent we are on others, how weak in our separateness, and yet how strong in our togetherness. Amen.
Our church is self-funded, supported by your generous annual pledge. You may also give to our weekly collection, which we split every month with a worthy group via our Giving Beyond Our Walls program. Remote folks can donate using the orange button at the top right corner of our homepage at melroseuu.org. In honor of the Climate Justice Revival happening later this month, our climate action team has chosen the Friends of Wakefield's NEMT Forest to be our giving partner for September. The Friends are committed to protecting the remaining forested wetlands of the NEMT Forest and natural resources in the broader Wakefield area through collaboration, legislation, and activism. For service music this morning, I've chosen 3 selections from the French Suite number 5 in G by J.S. Bach. And for the offertory, I'm going to play the Allemande from that piece. I can't really think of any group of keyboard pieces that embody joy, happiness, and contentment.
First, a reading this morning. A former college scholarship football player, Ross Gay, is now a poet and a professor at Indiana University. His poems and essays tend to focus on joy, his favorite topic, and I recommend them. Here is an excerpt from an essay from the 2022 book, Inciting Joy by Ross Gay. My hunch is that joy is an ember for, or precursor to, wild and unpredictable and transgressive and unboundaried solidarity. And that solidarity might incite further joy, which might incite further solidarity, and on and on. My hunch is that joy, emerging from our common sorrow, which does not necessarily mean we have the same sorrows, but that we, in common, sorrow. That joy might draw us together. It might depolarize us and de-atomize us enough that we can consider what, in common, we love. And though attending to what we hate in common is too often all the rage, and it happens also to be very big business, noticing what we love in common and studying that might help us survive. It's why I think of joy, which gets us to love, as being a practice of survival. Here ends the reading. So let's start with a question. What brings you joy? What are you doing in your life right now to cultivate joy? Now, if you have any trouble answering that question, I want you to know that I can relate to you. Let me tell you a story. I mentioned here before that a couple of years ago, I was invited to join a fairly prestigious ministers' study group. It's about 100 years old, this group, and it has a real academic bent. Twice a year, we meet for 2 days, and we choose topics to study. And we develop reading lists on these topics, and we even write and present academic papers on these topics in order to enrich our ministry. Usually, they are very serious topics like disability rights or democracy in crisis. But last spring, our topic was joy and pleasure. I did not vote for it. In this time of multiple and existential crises, how can you focus on joy, I thought? It's frivolous, indulgent, irresponsible, unworthy. I even have a minister friend who didn't go to the gathering for that exact reason. She didn't think it was worth her time. But I went, mostly because I love the conference center. It's in the woods in New Hampshire, and I just love being there. It gives me joy. The first day there, we sat 30 of us in a circle in a common room, and we started with a check-in question, which was, where are you finding joy these days? How are you cultivating joy? Not only did I not have an answer, I noticed that I was actually kind of angry about the question. Even after an hour of listening to everyone else in the room offer joy examples like kayaking, singing, knitting, hiking, playing with pets, I still couldn't come up with a joy authentically for myself. But because I was away on retreat in the woods for 2 days, I got to sit with those feelings and that unease until finally I felt some kind of shift happening in me. But it took a while. Flash forward from there to 2 months ago, to July 21st. Do you know what happened on that day? The big shift, right? Big switch, I think they're calling it now. And I wonder, where were you when you heard that news? I know that it was a sunny Sunday afternoon, and James and I were out at Salisbury Beach. We have these chairs that are backpacks, beach chairs that are backpacks, so we had just walked all the way, found a really good spot, put our chairs down, got our drinks out, put the umbrella up, relaxed. And then our phone started buzzing, and it was our kids. Did you hear? Did you hear? Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And in that moment, I knew it would just change everything, you know? I have a feeling now that it's going to be like one of those moments that you talk about for the rest of your life, you know, where were you when? That's how it feels to me now. And I remember thinking about all of you in that moment too, and wondering how you were experiencing that news, what was going through your mind. For myself, I couldn't believe the speed at which the Harris campaign got up and running right after that, and then got nominated and went on to what I thought was an energizing convention in August. And soon, two really clear themes emerged and took center stage: joy and freedom. Joy and freedom. And the more I thought about it, I thought, these are not just political ideas. They have deep cultural and spiritual resonance. And focusing on them, in my opinion, is driving a shift in our national conversation, a shift in energy and life force, I think, and I find it fascinating. But first, I have to admit, I have to tell the truth, that before we got to feeling that, before I can say that, I have to admit that I found myself thinking again, joy? Come on, why? Why that? Why now? In this time of multiple and existential crises, how can we afford to focus on joy? That's frivolous, indulgent, irresponsible. But over the next few weeks, as I watched and I listened, I realized that maybe I could learn something. I felt something shifting inside me and also outside of me, and I felt the whole national conversation shifting. My theory about that is that for years now, maybe 9 or 10 years, ever since that famous ride down the golden escalator, many of us have been stuck in crisis mode, especially since election night in 2016 and for the 4 years after that, and then through the pandemic. We were in chronic stress mode, fight, flight, or freeze. And I think some part of me was still fairly frozen. Even during the Biden administration, when there was a brief respite, when sanity seemed to prevail on some level for a while, our political conversation was still stuck, seems to me, because the loudest voices were still dominating and setting the agenda, mostly with lies and disinformation. And at the same time, the Biden administration wasn't able to draw attention to what it was doing that was good, to shift the focus, to move the needle. But somehow this summer, in just a few weeks, the Harris campaign did what the Biden campaign couldn't do in 3 years. Not with policy or reasoned argument, not at first. They started it with joy. Joy jolted us out of the rut we were in. Joy melted the ice. Joy took back the agenda and shifted us to a more normal sense of normal. Just like me at that retreat, we could not think our way out of the rut. We had to joy our way out of the rut. In her book, Pleasure Activism, contemporary philosopher Adrienne Marie Brown says, "Your pleasure is a measure of your freedom." Think about that. She says, we are all born to be free. Freedom is our birthright, and pleasure is also our birthright. The amount and quality of pleasure in our lives is a measure of our freedom. Our physical freedom, spiritual, emotional, political freedom. Joy is a measure of freedom. And so it follows, and this is something that hadn't dawned on me before, that joy is also a very potent antidote to fascism because it diffuses fear, which is the #1 tactic of authoritarian leaders or demagogues. Ruth Ben-Ghiat is an NYU historian who studies so-called strongmen leaders. She points out that in the 1940s, in the global fight against Hitler, among the most effective propaganda tools on our side were Charlie Chaplin and Bugs Bunny. Mocking Hitler threw him off kilter and helped to fuel the resistance. More recently, in 1980s Chile, protesters used joy and humor as a strategy to topple strongman Augusto Pinochet. In addition to jokes and vibes, they used a theme song called Chile, Happiness is Coming. Similarly, in the 1990s, a student group in Serbia used humor to topple the authoritarian regime of Slobodan Milosevic. Humor is the first step to break taboos and fears, writes Sami Belgarbia, a human rights campaigner in Tunisia. He says, making people laugh about dangerous stuff like dictatorship, repression, censorship is a first weapon against those fears. Without beating the fear, you cannot make any change. So humor is very effective. Without saying any of that, the Harris campaign just did it. Unlike the Biden campaign, which usually chose to stay above the fray, merely hoping their good works would speak for them, the Harris campaign jumped into the fray with memes and reels, jokes and laughter, trips to the Minnesota State Fair, and they reached a broader and younger demographic because of it without losing any ground, it seems to me. So ever since then, I've been wondering, how did that happen? How in a matter of weeks did the whole conversation shift? How did they unleash seemingly years' worth of pent-up energy and joy and passion? So far, I've found only one article that I think answers that question. It's from a blog called The Ink. I can share the link with you if you want. I think it's interesting. It's by a political writer named Anand Giridharadas. He writes, "The great political story of 2024 is President Biden's decision to stand aside in favor of his vice president. But this story, as dramatic as it is, may obscure the deeper story, which is less about the transition and more about the ascendance of a new political style. The style brought forward by younger members of the Harris team, quote, elevates attention over restraint, storytelling over self-explanatory policy-mindedness, fight-picking over always taking the high road, and thrilling the base over diluting for moderates," unquote. Why am I sharing this with you? Not because I want to talk about political strategy, but I think this is about a shift in the larger culture, one that I am learning a lot from, because it's also happening to me. I'm coming to see just how important joy is as a spiritual practice, but also as a cultural tool, a way of unifying us and strengthening our bonds with one another. I think it's all said so beautifully in that quote from Ross Gay. My hunch is joy is an ember for solidarity. An ember floats on the wind, and when it lands, it catches fire. Like an ember, joy floats around between us, and sometimes it catches fire. Joy incites solidarity, meaning it connects us. It emerges from our common sorrow. Sorrow and joy, as we see every week here, can be interlinked. We can feel them even at the same time because that's the human condition. And we are connected by that connection. Ross Gay says, joy might depolarize us and de-atomize us enough that we can consider what in common we love. Like peaches, like bubbles, like dumb jokes and knitting and concerts and state fairs, forests and beaches. So I come back around to what brings you joy. Maybe that's still hard for you to answer, but I invite you to spend some time with it this week, maybe. Maybe let that ice, if you have it, melt like I did. Maybe you can allow yourself to open up to joy, because you have to let yourself believe that joy is not frivolous. It's so much more than that. It is a cultural tool, a practice of survival. What if today you counted up all the minutes that you spend listening to the news or worrying about the state of the world, and you balanced that with the same amount of time immersed in joy? What if the whole world did that, balanced its anxiety intentionally with its joy? And then what if we tipped that balance? Next week, next Sunday, we'll talk here about cultivating joy, how we can grow joy in our life, just like you grow flowers in your garden. For now, we'll close today with another practice of joy, singing together. I want to give my thanks to the choir and to Tom, our wonderful music director. This is a gift that I requested. I learned it from a video that was shared around during the pandemic, this song, and I asked Tom if he could transcribe it and make it into a hymn that we could use in worship, and he did it. Thank you, Tom. And I'm grateful to him and to some choir members for learning it and teaching it to us this morning. It's called This Joy by Shirley Caesar. The lyrics will appear on the screen. Join in as your body and spirit moves you to do.
Folks, feel free to clap along if you'd like to, but if you find one of your neighbors clapping on 1 and 3, give them a nudge, because as Duke Ellington once said, friends don't let friends clap on 1 and 3.
Thank you. If you would, please remain standing and join me in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Don't know how it got over there. Please be seated. Concludes our worship service. Thank you so much for gathering today. I want to invite everyone who'd like to join us for some refreshments at coffee hour, which is the big room over there. Thank you very much to all our helpers today and to our staff members. Happy Sunday.